Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to RV Daydream. Today is probably going to be the warmest, driest day for a little bit.
What have you been up to?
I've been riding on a daydream.
We've had rain the last couple days. You could tell everything's still a little bit damp, and the leaves are definitely starting to come off the trees now because of how cool it is. Definitely back here. Looks like a carpeted lawn. Well, it is carpeted with leaves. So you guys watched my video the other day of me working on this truck, and sadly the problem still exists. It's definitely the front left, and it's definitely the caliper. So this is one of the things that I'm anal about, and I should have been anal when I did them the first time. Whenever I did the brakes, the guy told me when I bought the truck that it had just recently had some brake work done on it, and when I took it apart, the rotors looked really good. They were very thick, never turned, very smooth. Everything looked great, and the pads actually looked pretty good too, but I wanted to make sure, so I went ahead and bought myself some pads, and I replaced basically everything up front except for the rotors and the calipers. Now that I've replaced the brake hoses, I'm going to have to go ahead and replace the calipers. Well, if I'm going to replace the calipers, I'm going to replace the rotors. Now, I did do the wheel bearings in the front already on these rotors, so I have to get a couple new wheel seals so I can replace the bearings. So I'm doing rotors, calipers, pads, and new wheel seals to get this thing straightened out. It used to be you didn't buy a caliper, you bought a piston kit, a boot kit I think they called it back then. You'd push out the piston with air pressure, and then you'd clean up the piston with emery cloth if there's any kind of pitting or anything on there, and then at that point you had to make a decision if you needed a new piston or not. And yeah, I don't need to do any of that stuff. So I got to run up to Heidi's work. I just ordered all this all these parts online. That's something that you want to do if you're ordering with Advance Auto Parts. They have a lot of speed perks and stuff like that, but they also have a lot of online discounts that you can't get in the store. So definitely research it. I mean, if you just type in Advance Auto Parts coupon, for example, in a Google search, it's going to come up with some websites that's going to give you some codes. And if you take those codes and paste them in Advance Auto Parts checkout box, for discounts, you're going to get quite a few discounts. For example, we had some speed perks from when we did my son's van, and we also had a coupon that was available online, and I basically got $90 off what it would cost me if I would have just walked into the store. So yeah, $90 off. So it was like $400 and some to start off with, and I'm down to like $320. So definitely worth looking into. And I've got to hurry because I think I need to do the leaves today, especially in the gutters, because we're supposed to get up to 2 inches of rain in just a day or so, and if there's a lot of leaves up there, that may be an issue with my gutters. I don't want to have that issue going on, so I got a lot of work to do. Well, I went ahead and run to the parts store, picked up everything new. Again, I just have a hard time myself doing repairs without doing it the right way. I know that the bearings that are in the wheels are only about a year old. Of course, I'm going to have to repack them. If you guys never did calipers on your vehicle, usually they're not quite as simple as this. These you can see pretty much come, all together. And usually what you're replacing on your vehicle is just this part here, the caliper part, the slider part, not this bracket. But the way they do it with these vehicles, they use the whole bracket. They give you a whole new bracket. You can see there's a cap, there's a steel cap that's on here to help with vibration and stuff, and it goes over the phenolic piston. This is what I've been talking about, is these pistons and what they're made out of. Since they're kind of something that heat can't transfer very easily on, it allows it to keep the heat out of the fluid, so you don't boil your fluid. But this fluid has a high boiling point. So I'm going to go ahead and install the brake pads on here, but before I do that, I've got to break out the rotors, and yeah, I've got new rear seals, so I got to take the bearings out of that rotor that's on the vehicle now and put the bearings in the new rotors. Well, I'm definitely older in two ways. First, I'm kind of slowing down here. I'm not getting stuff done as fast as I'd like to. And secondly, my brain isn't up to par, because whenever I started digging into this rotor, actually the old rotor, a couple of things came up. First of all, my vision may not be as good as it used to be, because that other rotor had some problems. Let me show you. You can see it's not wearing like it should. It's not smooth all the way. It's actually got a groove in it, and it's kind of marred up, partially up the rotor, meaning that it's starting to fail. That's the first thing. So definitely needed the new rotors. Second thing, when I pulled the bearings out, the bearings said Timken on them. Well, quite honestly, I don't even know where I can buy Timken bearings. I'm sure I can order them somewhere, but the bearings that Heidi has at her work, they haven't been Timken for quite some time. They're National, which is Federal Mogul, or they're another off-brand, which I never buy. But the bearings that were in this said Timken. Not only that, but the seal that I was replacing on the back of the rotor, it said Ford. Yeah, it was a really nice Ford seal. Even as old as it is, it was much better than the National seal that I just bought for it. It had a bracket to it. It's kind of hard to describe. It had a hat, I guess you could call on it, to where it seats easier and installs easier. But anyways, so I never did the bearings on this truck. I never did the grease on the truck. As soon as I pulled the cap off and pulled out the bearing and looked inside there, I'm like, And then I pulled the rotor off. It's like, wow, was I stingy with the grease when I installed this? And that's not normally the way I am. I usually put a decent amount of grease in there. I don't overpack it. I don't fill it too much, but I put a decent amount of grease in there. And it was low on grease. Didn't have a lot of grease in it. The bearings looked okay, but they just weren't new. I got to do the whole other passenger side now, and I need to bleed the brakes then, which fortunately I just need to bleed the front. And that's it. This thing should be done. What I'll do then is I take it out, and quite honestly, I run it really hard and, really get on the brakes. I mean, really get on the brakes. Put it through a couple of real hard heat cycles, and then I let it cool as I go around this big country mile block, whatever it is. And I do that a few times, and then on my way home, I let it cool all the way on my way home. That way, the pads get burnished into the rotors. I've talked about this before on other vehicles, but all right, let me go back to work, because I'm running out of daylight and I still need to do these leaves because the rain's coming. So it's getting late, and I was showing you this, but I ran out of grease. I have a bearing packer. I forgot we packed the wheel bearings of the RV this year. So anyways, Heidi had to run and get me some grease. In the meantime, I went ahead and got out the mower so I could do the leaves. And she came home, she says, "You want me to finish that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." So Heidi's out there doing my job. I don't think she has ever mowed the lawn. You know what? I don't think she's ever rode that mower. So this is a first for her. But it's real easy. It's like a car, it's a hydrostat. You just push the pedal, and the harder you push, the faster you go. And when you want to go in reverse, you push a different pedal, and when you want to turn on the blades or turn them off, it's a button. So it's pretty easy, but it's kind of funny seeing her mow. But yeah, I got to get this side done. You can see I got everything off, but I just ran out of grease. Almost finished. All right, so we're going to go take it for a test drive, or I'm going to take it for a test drive. Heidi's got dinner in there for me. It took a little bit longer than I expected because a lot of air in the lines, so I had to really have Heidi bleed and bleed and bleed the brakes. She's out there pumping the brakes. But take it for a test drive, burn these rotors up pretty good, get everything to burnish in, and hopefully we're done. Be ready to go somewhere, go do a we'll talk about that later, but we wanted to give you an update, and I'm kind of tired, so adios for now.